Oh my God. Welcome back. It's been a while. It's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah. Yeah, that's an understatement. Can we just pretend like that didn't happen? Like the most recent episode was just last week and we've just carried on seamlessly. Yeah, no, that'd be great. No, look, sorry about that. I appreciate your patience, everyone. I'm sure you're all champing at the bit, ready for that notification to crop up. Hey, just on that, have you guys thought of the notifications thing? Because I know I asked you to subscribe, but I do believe I also asked you to hit the bell button on Spotify and YouTube. So, yeah, class, if we could just get that done by the end of the school day, that'd be lovely. Thank you, children. All right, enough silliness. Should we crack in? This is the third and final part of my interview series with Brock. For those of you who've listened to the show before, you're probably familiar with Brock. This isn't necessarily a chronological story that you have to listen to in order, but if you haven't heard his first two parts, I would highly recommend that you do. They are incredible, beautiful, sad, scary, wonderful, and this episode's no different. I mean, man, this guy has stories for days, and I love it. So yeah, let's crack in. As ever, if you're feeling generous and you'd like to contribute to the show and help out with some better equipment and, I don't know, attract more high-profile guests or something, no, that's actually quite rude, isn't it? As I'm introducing my next guest, Brock. No, that forget that. But if you would like to donate, that would be greatly appreciated. In the show notes, there are two payment links. One is for credit and debit cards, and the other is for cryptocurrency donations, which you can make anonymously. I don't even get to see your wallet address. So yeah, I think that's about it. Should we crack in? I think we should. We've waited long enough. So, this is the Cosmic Banter Podcast. I am your host, Steve, and this is Season 1, Episode 15, The Doppelgänger and the Hag, Brock, Part 3. As ever, remain curious, and when the phenomenon decides to reach you, I hope that you decide to reach out to Cosmic Banter. Peace. Rob, welcome back. What is this, episode 3?
I believe it's episode 3. It's really, really great to be here, Steve.
Or part 3. Yeah, great to have you back. I'm really excited about this episode in particular. You've given me a bit of a rundown, but I actually haven't heard the full story. So much like the listener, I'll be hearing sort of the full story for the first time, which is exciting. You have had, is it in the house that you're in right now? You've had some crazy experiences?
Yes.
I understand you've had not just paranormal stuff happen, but you've actually encountered some cryptid-like creatures, would you say?
Yes. I would say cryptid-like creatures. There's 3 main ones, or who knows, they could be the same thing. I don't know. But they're distinctly different in their own way. There's 3 that I want to talk about tonight, and I have some photos that I've prepared that I can put up on the screen here. So this house, like every house that I've ever lived in, is haunted. So I'm not sure what that means exactly, whether there's lots of haunted houses, or whether they follow me, or I think my partner who's here with me can say the same thing as well. So from when we first moved here, which is about 4 years ago now, where you spend the first night in a place and you're familiar with the old place and the sounds of the house you've been in for a while, and then you move to a new place and there's a whole new range of sounds and things to get used to, whether that be the sound of the traffic or different sounds of nature or something like that. And there's sounds that that are ubiquitous. I'm from Australia, and there's possums here, as there is in most places in Australia. You know what they sound like: screeching, making terrible sounds, running on the roof.
Oh, that can be awful. Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah. Look, if anybody outside Australia listening to this, if you heard a possum and didn't see it, you would be thinking it's cryptid. But I'm familiar. I've lived with them all my life. I know what they sound like, and I know what other creatures sound like here. And there's not a lot where I live. It's in a suburb in Melbourne. It's not out in the wild. So, in saying that, so we've got some kind of entity. I'm not sure whether it's physical or not. It makes a sound. And there's another one that would call my phone and be really scary and creepy. And I didn't think was physical until it was seen just recently. And then there's one that is definitely physical, because I've seen it and had a few experiences with it. I'm going to start with the phone calls and this entity that I'm calling the Old Hag. And it started, the very first phone call wasn't long after moving in here, and I have my phone on Do Not Disturb at night so I can sleep, and this call came through that, and it was an unknown number, and I thought, somebody calling me at this time, perhaps I'll answer it. So I did answer it, and I had it on speaker, and I was in bed at the time. And what came through was this, it was unintelligible, and it sounded like somebody speaking in a language I didn't recognize. I don't recognize it to be any language that I'm familiar with. It was clear, although a little quiet, but it was somebody yelling in another language at me. And so I said the normal things you say. Hello, who is this? I can't understand you. And then I thought perhaps they've got the wrong number. And so I said, I'm hanging up now. And I hung up. And I didn't think that much of it, because that's just something that can happen. That's not unusual that somebody would ring the wrong number.
So sorry to jump in, Brock. Are you saying that you're not only receiving random calls from unknown numbers, but when you answer, you're hearing something unintelligible, like in a different language?
It was in a different language. It was a woman, and it was an old woman. So that's what I could discern from that phone call, but I didn't know who it was. The number was blocked. And okay. I made an assumption it was the wrong number, but since then, it was a little while later, maybe a month or two later, and it was about the same time of night. The phone rang again, and it was the same sort of set of circumstances around that. This time, it was the same sounding woman, but she was speaking English, and she sounded elderly, and there were some sounds in the background that it's hard to really know what they were, but perhaps it's hard to describe. Some kind of whirring sound in the background. I'd just been in like an argument with my partner, No, nothing serious, just an argument, just a disagreement. And so the phone rings, I put it on speaker, and this old lady's voice said, "You're an angry boy, aren't you?" And that took me aback. And I went, "Who is this? And what do you want?" And nothing. And I said, "Where are you?" And she replied in the creepiest possible way, "I'm outside your bedroom window," which really freaked me out. And from my perspective, with the curtains drawn, if there's a deck immediately outside of our bedroom, and if somebody's standing on that deck, you can see a silhouette. And so I turned my head and almost not wanting to look, and there is just the flash of a silhouette that promptly ducks down out of sight. And
What?
yes,
What time of day or night?
so this particular call was 10:35 in the evening, so it was dark, relatively dark, and it's mind you, it's a private deck too, so there's not accessible. So
right, and this is the second call. Sorry, this is the
the second call. Yeah,
roughly how many years ago was this?
This is going back about 3 years now.
Okay, so 2021. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Continue.
So that scared me. There's somebody out there. I heard no sound. It's very difficult to walk out there without being able to hear somebody out there. And the way they ducked down, I assumed I would have heard some sound, but nothing. And that really scared me. And, I tell you, it scared me so much, I thought, I must have imagined that. I must be imagining that. I must have imagined that. And my partner, laying in bed next to me, grabbed me by the arm, and she didn't say anything, but I thought, oh my God, she's seen that. So this is happening. And then this, whatever it was on the phone, says a very peculiar thing. And she said, "Mousy brown," and then click, and the phone went dead. Oh, I'm thinking the only way that this thing could have known that I'm angry is if they were listening to our conversation in the bedroom. And so they were out there, and how they got there, I don't know.
Do you believe that it was something, a real person that maybe had some sort of spiritual psychic abilities, or do you think it was something more ethereal, like what?
At this time, I didn't know.
Okay.
It was very difficult to make sense of. First of all, they had my number. Secondly, they said something in relation to what a private conversation that I was having with my partner. And thirdly, they were on the deck, but it's a private deck. It's not accessible. Or something was anyway. And the mousy brown part, which totally freaked me out, was something that has never, ever been mentioned to me before. But that was my partner's nickname from one of her friends in high school who is since deceased. So that was a specific term for my partner, only used by her former friend who was deceased.
Did you know of that nickname? Had your partner told you? No,
I didn't know of that nickname. It made no sense to me at the time until she explained afterwards. Mousy Brown was my friend's nickname for me. And
my God.
So, yeah. And she said, I haven't thought about that in many, many years. So it's not like whoever this person was had picked this up from our conversation or listening in. It's not something that's ever been written in an email or anything at all. So
right.
It was almost like an example of, I know everything's happening or something. It felt intimidating.
Right. So it was sort of trying to show, hey, I not only know things about what you're talking about now, what's going on, but stuff that no one else could know.
Yes.
It was like trying to prove a point, you feel. When you told your
Yes.
partner this, was she jumping to conclusions like, wonder if it is my friend?
I don't know. It sounded like an old woman, and my partner's friend was young when they passed away. That they weren't going to be sounding like an old woman. But couldn't have been. I mean, that reference is very, very specific. That's just speculation. But look, it goes further. It may be a manifestation of another thing that's in the house, which I've seen as a doppelganger. My partner has seen it as a dark, shadowy creature, and a friend of one of my stepkids, one of my partner's children, saw it, and what added real weight to it was something my partner said when there's the laundry in our house, and she saw this thing in the laundry, and this is also where I saw a doppelganger of my stepdaughter walk into. And so the story to that is there's a short hallway leading from the main living area into the kitchen, and the door to the laundry is there. So I was making coffee at the coffee machine one morning, and mind you, the doorway's glass too, so you can see people coming and going. So I'm making coffee and a movement in my eye, and I looked up to see my stepdaughter coming through the door and walking into the laundry. And I thought, that's weird. She'd start that kind of thing that she would do. And but I kept making my coffee, and then I'd finished making the coffee and she hadn't come back out. Now, this is pretty much in direct line of sight for me, and you can't miss it. So I put the coffee down and I walked around the island bench, and I walked down and I looked in the laundry, no one in there. There's no other way out of the laundry. And my heart sank when I saw that, because I knew I'd seen my stepdaughter or what looked exactly like her. Everything, the mannerisms of the way she walked, everything. And then after she never came out and I went and looked and she wasn't in there, whatever walked in disappeared in there. And that really gave me a sinking feeling of whatever this thing is, it can perfectly mimic the people in this house. So a little while after that, my partner came to me and said, I've just seen something in the laundry. This was at night time. And she said she described it as a dark shape. But the critical thing here for the story is she said it made a sound like static or crinkling lolly wrappers, or crinkling plastic was how she described it. She said it sounded like static that was coming off it, and it sounded like crinkling wrappers. And so it was in the same spot that I saw this doppelganger. And only a short while after that, I think it was less than a week after that, one of the kids' friends came tearing in and said, "Oh my God, I've seen something. I've seen something." And described this dark, menacing shape looming up in the laundry. And he said, and it made a sound, it made a sound like crinkling plastic or something like that. And we hadn't told anybody. For him to say that, it really, he's not making that up.
Quite a specific description, isn't it?
Way too specific. Yeah, the crinkling plastic.
Was there more to come on the doppelganger? Because if not, I just want to visit that very briefly.
The other sighting of the doppelganger was another friend of one of the kids here saw a doppelganger here of himself.
Oh my God, of himself.
Yep, he was inconsolable. The poor guy.
What?
So,
can you tell that story as best as you can? I know it's secondhand, but
it is secondhand. He has told to me in detail.
this is the same. This is in your house, right?
Yes. He is leaving the house and rounds the corner to come face to face with a doppelganger, and he couldn't really get his head around what he was seeing. He assumed he must be looking at somebody who just looks like him. And he approached this person and it was him. And in terror, he gave it a whack on the side of the head and fell backwards and then turned around and scrambled and ran off. And he described this thing as looking exactly like him. And it felt like a person as well. He said it felt like whacking a person on the side of the head.
So, hang on. Wow. So at this stage, does it have its back to him, or he can see it front on?
No, he was looking at it front on, like you're facing another person.
And is he, when he says at first he thought that it was, perhaps just someone that looked like him, do you think that was him trying to rationalize? At what point
that
did
was
he?
That was him trying to rationalize what he was seeing. So I kind of understand it from experiences I've had where you try to make sense of a situation.
Yes.
And if it's totally alien and unknown, you reach weird conclusions, I know, and his conclusion was it must be somebody else.
But what was the point? What was the point where he was convinced, no, that was me, it was a doppelganger?
When he walked right up to this person, and that person, or whatever it was, doppelganger, walked right up to him, and they stood staring at each other for a couple of seconds. And he was left in no doubt that it was himself or something imitating himself, looking back at him. And it looked back at him with a bit of like a smirky, like, look on its face, like, yeah, I gotcha kind of look. And in instinct, this is not something this guy is prone to. He's not a violent guy, but in instinct, in terror, he just lashed out at it and connected with it and fell back and then turned around and scrambled up to his feet and got out of there without looking back.
When he connected with it, so he punched it, you mean?
Yeah.
In the face.
Yeah. Yep. And
then he fell back.
Yep.
Did he fall back sort of like in fear, or did he?
Yes, in fear. Yeah.
And then he scrambled back out. Did he get a glance of it after he had punched it?
No.
Right. And did it feel, and he said it felt human?
Yes.
When he engaged with it?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so it felt solid to him, felt like a person to him. But he's absolutely adamant that it was him. He was looking at himself. He was adamant he was not confusing it with a person that just looked like him. He was also wearing his clothes too. So
he's wearing his clothes that he's wearing that day.
Yes.
And when he approached it, it also approached him. Was it mimicking his movements?
No, it wasn't mimicking his movements. No, I did ask him that. It wasn't mimicking his movements. It was walking like him, but it wasn't in step with him. And it smirked at him with a menacing smirk, and which he felt he wasn't doing himself. He felt that his face was, if he was to describe how his face was, that it would have been with a look of dread. It really freaked him out. Yes, he was very, very, very upset about it. Yes. So
you believe that this is the same entity?
I can only speculate, but it is a thing. There is. I've seen a doppelganger. So has he. My partner and another one of the other friends here saw something in the laundry. I don't know if it's the same thing. But I'll finish off with the old hag.
Mm-hmm.
My partner's son comes screaming into the house and grabbed us and said, "I've just seen the scariest thing of my life." And he's been sort of sheltered from a lot of these experiences. I mean, a lot of the sounds and the knockings and that, yes, but not so much any of this stuff. But he comes screaming inside and described out on the street, standing in the middle of the road, wearing tattered, filthy nightgown, was a barefoot old lady that could have been in her 80s, but she was standing upright, but with her hands and her body doubled over and her hands dangling down limply almost at her feet with long tattered grey hair dangling down as well to obscure the face, standing in the middle of the road. And so he came right up on it and looked at it and concluded that by the state of the clothing and the general appearance of this thing, that it wasn't a person, it was something else. And tore inside in absolute terror. I went immediately out there and nothing. And I would have thought, in the time it took me to get out there, if it was an old woman standing in the middle of the road, that she wouldn't have had time to get anywhere. I'm putting it out there that I can move faster than an old woman, and especially a barefoot old woman, and especially one that seemed to be in some kind of weird position. And so he described staring at her for 30 seconds, saying, "Hello, are you all right? Do you need help?" And there was zero response. It just bent over double, hand hanging limply down almost to its feet with that long, tattered grey hair.
So you said her arms were draping down. Like, I'm not a big fan. I don't watch any horror films, right? Because believe it or not, even though I'm doing this podcast, I'm a bit of a scaredy cat. But that springs to mind is there's like the cover of one of those classic, is it The Exorcist? But it's a little girl and it's long hair.
Yeah.
Do you know the one I'm talking about?
I guess it does sound a little cliched. So how he described it was, if you were standing upright and you were trying to bend over and touch your toes without bending your knees, that was kind of the body position, but he said their hands were limp. And so a doubled over person standing up, legs straight but bent right over. The only thing that was out there was a weird, to me it looked like if a car had dumped some oil on the road in a big puddle. That's the only thing that was out there at the indicated spot. To me, it looked like motor oil.
Wow.
I didn't touch it, but it, motor oil has a distinct sheen, gloss, and appearance to it, and a viscosity to it. So you can tell the difference between motor oil and another fluid. And to me, it looked like motor oil.
That's it. That's an interesting observation, because it's one thing when you hear these sort of ghost stories or poltergeists, and maybe at a certain point it's not just hearing and sensing things, but you actually sort of see an apparition. But you've described now, we don't know for sure, we're speculating, we don't know whether it is the same thing, but you've now described two different occasions where this thing or these things had physical properties beyond just the appearance. So when, was it your stepson?
Yes.
Yes, when he punched this doppelganger and
no, that was a friend of one of the kids.
Oh, the friend, okay. Felt like a human engaging with skin, and then even after this old woman had disappeared in the same spot as this oily substance, which is bizarre.
I have no idea what to make of it. But that sighting of that woman plus the sound of whoever it was calling me up with this whole Angry Boy Mousy Brown thing. I'm calling that the Old Hag. That's just what we're referring to it as. The Doppelgänger is the Doppelgänger, and the black shadow entity is the black shadow entity, and that just leaves, as far as cryptids go here, there's one more, which I know, Steve, is your personal favourite.
I'm excited. Before we get to that, is that the Old Hag story? Because I want to just ask a couple of questions.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's the Old Hag story. Yes.
Well, I just want to invite you into, we should have a little segment, right, where I should get someone to edit in some sort of, right, speculation time. Speculation time. Right? Because you're through, with everything that you've been through, which sounds to anyone else, just, well, even myself, but I believe you, but even to myself, sounds absolutely fantastical and impossible. And yet, when you describe all these stories, you are so grounded, you are cognizant of, pointing out what it couldn't have been, process of elimination. So I think you're quite rational in that sense, and I think that's fantastic. But let's cut that part. And now let's, with the caveat of this just being speculation, allow for some speculation. Do you think there's a chance that it is the same entity, and sometimes it appears as an old hag on the phone and your stepson's friend seeing it across the road, but that it, whatever this entity is, also was the doppelgangers and the shadowy figure?
Look, thank you for adding the part about trying to be rational in speculating about this, and looking at alternative logical answers. If you ask me, do I think it's the same thing? I'm saying it could be. It could be. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But then if it's the same thing, then does that mean it's also Dogman? I don't know.
Oh my God, what did you just say? Are we going there?
Well,
are we going there?
I think
let's do it, Brock.
Well, I'm saying my feeling is, if my gut feeling says they're separate.
Okay, I'm just going to get you to pause because we haven't introduced even the concept of the. We have to jump into it now. Shall we go into?
I hope I haven't spoiled it for the audience.
No, you haven't. You got me excited though, because this is the main story really for this. But they're all linked, it is.
They are. They're all linked, and I feel it's important to talk about all of them because I do believe that they are linked.
Hey, what are you guys doing back? Only like halfway through the episode, aren't you? Nah, see, I lied to you. I said that there were only going to be 3 parts to Brock's story, and there were. I was going to include the rest of that interview in the third part, this third episode, but as you got a little hint of towards the end there, Brock was about to launch into his fantastical Dogman encounter, or should I say encounters, and I think that deserved an episode in and of itself. Also trying to keep these episodes to reasonable times, and but at the same time want to do the stories justice, and I don't want to cut out too much. So we're going to have a week's break. Not another 2-month break, I promise. And episode 17 will be Brock's 4th and final episode. So that's an exciting one. It's a good story. It's another great story. And I'm really excited for you guys to hear episode 16, the next episode after this one. that is a New Zealand story. Okay. Yeah, let's get some more Kiwis in, by the way. Enough of these Aussies and Brits. It's a UFO story, but it's an untold story. Now, I'm saying all this because I'm not spoiling it. I interviewed two brothers, corroborating witnesses. I interviewed them separately, and they are just as keen as I am, probably more keen, to find out whether anyone else encountered what they encountered. They have reason to believe that there should be a number of others. It's really special though, because I would go as far as to say that this is a big claim, and perhaps the bar isn't very high, but I think this is New Zealand's best UFO story. So look forward to that. Thank you for your patience, guys. Thanks for the donations, subscriptions, and all of the positivity, and for supporting me and the guests. Hope you enjoyed that, and yeah, have a great night. Peace.